Hello, and welcome to Episode 7 of the Bulldog Blast Podcast. This broadcast is written and produced by 7th and 8th graders at Heuvelton Central School. I'm your host, Mrs. Madlin. In our first segment today, Hannah, Joe, Haley, and Trayton will discuss how New Francis Society was organized.
Welcome back to the Bulldog Blast Podcast. Today we'll be talking about what a hierarchical society is and what it was like in New France. So what is a hierarchical society? Well, this society has distinct levels that remain separate.
So is New France a hierarchical society?
Well, historians say New France was.
Aren't there two hierarchical societies in New France?
Yes, one was religious and the other one was a civil society. Want to know a fun fact?
No.
Well, I will tell you anyways. The king, minister, and viceroy did not live in New France. There were no elections for the governors back then.
Cool.
Yes, a good example is today's education system.
So who ran this system?
The minister.
So what does the minister do exactly?
Well, there are different types of ministers. One of them is an education minister. So the boss of the school board, superintendents, principals, teachers, and students. There are many types of ministers, though.
What did the intendant do?
The governors appointed members to the council, and the intendant made sure the laws and rules were obeyed. So let's talk about the religious society.
Mostly everyone was Catholic, right?
Yes, the church officials and royals were at the top, while the habitants were at the very bottom.
What were habitants?
Habitants were farmers. They fished, grew crops, had a family, and a big farm.
So what else do we have to talk about?
Well, we've covered all the stuff we need to know.
Well, thanks for joining in on our podcast. Hope you enjoyed.
Thanks, everyone. In our next segment, Michaela and Ashley will debate whether Acadians should have been expelled from Acadia.
Today we are going to debate on whether Acadians should have been expelled from Acadia or not. Acadia was France's second colony in eastern North America. The king didn't give Acadia a lot of attention. It was vulnerable to attack. In 1694, the attackers from New England occupied Port Royal but returned it to France in the peace treaty of 1697. During the Spanish Succession, France and Britain were fighting to control colonies in a number of areas. They made a peace treaty and gave up Acadia for Guadeloupe and Martinique. Acadia became a British colony. I believe Acadians should not have been expelled from Acadia because they had lived there for several generations and wanted to continue living there peacefully. But British took over Acadia and made it a British colony. It was Britain's land, so they should be able to do what they want with it. The British tried to get the Acadians to take an oath of allegiance and statement of loyalty to the British king, but the Acadians would not sign it. How would you feel if someone came and took the home that you lived in for years? I would be upset, but the British won in the land fair and square. The British had been harassing the Acadians for petty reasons. They were doing this because they wanted the Acadians off their land that they'd won. So what do you think? What side are you on?
Thanks, Michaela and Ashley. In our final segment today, Lydia will interview muckraker Upton Sinclair, aka Chris.
We'll be interviewing the famous Upton Sinclair, so stick around to learn more. Oh, and I'm Lydia, by the way.
And my name is Chris, or also known as Upton Sinclair.
So, to begin, how were your overall experiences working undercover in the meatpacking industry?
Absolutely atrocious.
Well, please, go on.
Many times, meat fat scraps were mislabeled to purposely mislead customers, not to mention the fact that disease-contaminated and rotten meat would also be packaged for sale. Plus, some shady workers who probably were being paid under the table would package disgusting, nasty meat past normal operation hours to avoid inspectors.
Wow, that's truly repulsive. What about the working conditions and health violations other than those you have mentioned previously?
A lot of workers had skin diseases or would accidentally cut off their fingers when chopping meat. Quite a few of my co-workers were suffering from tuberculosis and would cough up blood onto the floors. Though my least favorite part of it would have to be the toilets, if you could even call them that. They were placed right near where the meat was being packaged. The real kicker, though, is that there was no soap or water to offer to clean our hands.
I'm sure you're glad to be out of there.
Definitely.
Well, on a lighter note, I've been told you have written over 100 books.
That is true.
Your most popular by far being The Jungle. Would you care to briefly explain the plot of the book?
Well, sure. To be brief, an immigrant couple moved to Chicago with high hopes of starting a new life. The husband, Hergis, begins working at a meatpacking plant, in which he experiences many of the terrible things I have previously mentioned to you. He puts his life at risk each day by simply going to work, but you'll have to read the book to find out.
Of course. All in all, I think it goes without saying that your work really pulled back the curtain, if you will, and opened the public's eyes to such an odious and prominent issue in our society.
Well, thank you. That most certainly was my goal with all the work.
Well, I really appreciated getting to speak to you today.
And you as well.
Wow. Thanks, Lydia and Chris. I am now officially a vegetarian. This concludes episode 7 of the Bulldog Blast Podcast. We hope you'll tune in for our next episode.